The morning alarm blared across the dormitory at exactly 0500 hours. Just like every other day at the Intergalactic Defense Academy, Maya Collins rolled out of her narrow bunk and hit the cold metal floor with her bare feet. Around her, dozens of other cadets were doing the same thing, but most of them were not human. Maya grabbed her uniform from the small locker beside her bed. The standard gray jumpsuit looked the same on everyone, but it could not hide the differences between species. Next to her, a tall, blue-skinned Zephyrian named Kira was already dressed and checking her equipment. Her movements were quick and smooth, like a dancer. On the other side of the room, 3 Chronexi cadets were helping each other with their gear. Their thick, scaly skin made it hard for them to reach certain spots on their backs. Another day in paradise, Maya muttered to herself as she pulled on her boots. She had been at the academy for 6 months now, and every day felt like a test she was barely passing. The academy was built on New Haven, a planet that existed solely for military training. The buildings were made of gray concrete and steel, designed to be tough rather than beautiful. Everything was built to last and to remind the cadets that they were here to become soldiers, not to enjoy themselves. Maya walked to the bathroom area, where she splashed cold water on her face and looked at herself in the mirror. Her brown eyes looked tired, and her dark hair was a mess from sleep. She was average height for a human, about 5 feet 6 inches, but here at the academy she felt small. Most of the other species were either taller, stronger, or faster than humans. Sometimes she wondered what she was doing here. The mess hall was already crowded when Maya arrived for breakfast. She grabbed a tray and got in line behind a group of Vorthan cadets. The Vorthans were thin and pale, with large eyes that seemed to see everything. They spoke in quiet, precise voices and moved with careful, planned steps. They made Maya feel clumsy just by standing near them. "Watch it, human," one of the Vorthans said as Maya accidentally bumped into him. "Try to be more careful." "Sorry," Maya said, but the Vorthan had already turned away. She got her food and looked around for a place to sit. Most of the tables were taken by groups of the same species. Humans sat with humans, Chronexi with Chronexi, and so on. Maya found a small table near the window and sat down alone. The food was not bad, but it was not great either. Everything was designed to give the cadets the nutrients they needed to train hard all day. Maya ate her protein bar and drank her vitamin drink while watching the other cadets through the window. Some of them were already outside, doing extra training before classes started. She could see a group of Chronaxi lifting weights that would crush a human, and some Zephyrians running laps at speeds that looked impossible. "Mind if I sit here?" a voice asked. Maya looked up to see Jake Peterson, one of the few other human cadets at the academy. He was from Earth's moon colonies and had been here for almost a year. "Sure," Maya said, glad to have some company. Jake sat down with his tray and started eating. "How are you holding up?" he asked between bites. "I'm still here," Maya replied. "That has to count for something," Jake nodded. "The first year is the hardest. Most humans who come here don't make it past the first few months." Maya knew this was true. When she had arrived, there had been 12 human cadets in her class. Now there were only 4 left. The others had either quit or been kicked out for not meeting the standards. "Why do you think that is?" Maya asked. "Because they expect us to fail," Jake said. "Look around this room." "What do you see?" Maya looked at the other cadets. The Chronaxi were big and strong with natural armor in their scales. The Zephyrians were fast and agile, able to move in ways that seemed to defy physics. The Vorthans were smart and precise, calculating every move before they made it. Each species had clear advantages that made them good at fighting. "I see a bunch of aliens who are better at this than we are," Maya said. "That's what they want you to think," Jake said. "But you're still here, aren't you? You haven't quit yet." Maya thought about this. It was true that she had not quit, even though every day was a struggle. She had grown up on a farming colony, where hard work was just part of life. Her parents had taught her that giving up was not an option, no matter how difficult things got. "What do you think makes humans special?" Maya asked. Jake smiled. "We're stubborn. We don't know when to quit." and we're really good at adapting to things that should kill us. The conversation was interrupted by the sound of boots on the metal floor. Commander Blake Turner, one of the human instructors, walked into the mess hall. He was a big man with graying hair and scars on his hands from years of combat training. He had been at the academy for 10 years and was respected by cadets of all species. "Attention all cadets," Commander Turner announced. "Report to Training Base 7 in 15 minutes for hand-to-hand combat practice, full gear required." Maya felt her stomach tighten. Combat training was always the hardest part of the day. It was where the differences between species were most obvious and where she felt most out of place. "You'll be fine," Jake said, seeing her expression. "Just remember what I told you about being stubborn." Maya finished her breakfast and headed back to her room to get her training gear. She put on the padded protection that was required for sparring and checked her equipment twice. Everything had to be perfect or the instructors would make her start over. Training Base 7 was a large room with mats on the floor and mirrors on the walls. The ceiling was high and the lights were bright and harsh. Maya could smell sweat and fear in the air as cadets filed in and took their positions. Commander Turner stood at the front of the room, his arms crossed over his chest. Next to him was Instructor Vex, a Chronexy who was known for being tough on cadets who made mistakes. "Today we will practice close combat techniques," Commander Turner announced. "You will be paired with cadets from different species. The goal is to learn how to fight against opponents who have different strengths and weaknesses than you do." Maya looked around the room nervously. She hoped she would be paired with someone she could handle, maybe another human or one of the smaller. "Zephyrians, Collins," Commander Turner called out. "You're with Kexvar." Maya's heart sank. She looked across the room to see Kexvar, a massive Chronaxy who was nearly 8 feet tall and probably weighed 3 times as much as she did. His scales were dark green and looked as tough as armor. He was smiling at her, but it was not a friendly smile. This was going to be a long day. Kexvar walked over to Maya with slow, heavy steps. Each footstep made a dull thud on the training mat. His massive frame blocked out the light from above, casting a shadow over her. Maya had to tilt her head back to look at his face, which was covered in thick green scales that looked like natural armor. "So, the little human wants to play soldier," Kexvar said in a deep, rumbling voice. His words were loud enough for other cadets to hear. This should be entertaining. Maya stood her ground, even though her heart was beating fast. She had faced bigger opponents before, but never one this large or this confident. Kexvar's arms were as thick as her waist, and his hands looked like they could crush rocks. "I'm here to train, just like you," Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady. Kexvar laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "Train? You humans call this training? Where I come from, we would call this a warm-up for our younglings." Other cadets began to gather around them. Maya could see Zephyrians, Vorthans, and more Chronexy forming a circle. Even some of the human cadets stopped their own training to watch. She felt dozens of eyes on her, waiting to see what would happen. "On Chronax Prime, we have a saying," Kexvar continued, his voice getting louder. "The strong survive and the weak serve. Humans are made for serving, not fighting." "That's enough," Commander Turner called out, but he made no move to stop the confrontation. Maya realized that this was part of the training. The instructors wanted to see how she would handle the pressure. "Look at her," Kexvar said, gesturing to Maya with one massive hand. "She is small, weak, and soft. Her species has no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. They are the weakest race in the galaxy." A few of the alien cadets nodded in agreement. Maya had heard these comments before, but never so publicly. She felt heat rising in her cheeks, but she forced herself to stay calm. "Humans should stick to what they do best," Kexvar continued. "Growing food, fixing machines, filing reports. Leave the real fighting to those who were born for it." "You talk a lot for someone who hasn't thrown a punch yet," Maya said. The words came out before she could stop them. The circle of cadets grew quiet. Kexvar's yellow eyes narrowed, and his mouth opened slightly to show rows of sharp teeth. "What did you say, little human?" Maya took a deep breath. She was tired of being talked down to, tired of being treated like she did not belong here. I said you talk too much? If you want to prove humans are weak, then prove it. Stop talking and start fighting. Kexvar's face darkened. You dare challenge me? You have no idea what you are asking for. I know exactly what I'm asking for, Maya replied. A fair fight. Unless you're afraid that all your big talk is just noise. The other cadets began to murmur among themselves. Some of them were placing bets on how long Maya would last. She heard numbers being called out, 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes at most. This is foolish, said Kira, the Zephyrian who slept in the bunk next to Maya. Kexvar is 3 times your size. He will hurt you badly. Maybe, Maya said, not taking her eyes off the big Chronaxi, but I'm not backing down. Kexvar stepped into the center of the sparring circle and began to stretch his massive arms. His movements were slow but powerful, like a machine warming up. I will try not to break you too badly, little human. I do not want to get in trouble for damaging Academy property. The other cadets laughed at this. Maya felt her anger growing, but she used it to focus herself. She had been in difficult situations before. Growing up on a farming colony meant dealing with dangerous animals and harsh weather. She had learned to think quickly and move faster. Standard sparring rules, Commander Turner announced. No weapons. No killing strikes, no attacks to the eyes or throat. The match ends when one fighter yields or is unable to continue. Maya walked to her side of the circle and began her own warm-up routine. She moved through a series of stretches and practice punches, trying to loosen up her muscles. Her movements were quick and precise, very different from Kexvar's slow, powerful motions. Look at her, one of the Chronaxi cadets said. She moves like a small animal, quick but useless. Humans are prey animals, another added. They run from fights, they do not start them. Maya ignored the comments and focused on studying her opponent. Kexvar was huge and strong, but his size might also be a weakness. Big creatures were often slow to change direction. His thick scales would protect him from most attacks, but they might also limit his flexibility. She thought about her training back on the farming colony. Her father had taught her to hunt and defend herself against the large predators that sometimes attacked their livestock. The key was not to meet strength with strength, but to use speed and intelligence to find weak points. Are you ready, little human? Kexvar asked. He was now standing in a fighting stance, his massive fists raised in front of him. I'm ready, Maya said, moving into her own stance. She kept her feet light and her hands up, ready to move in any direction. Begin, Commander Turner called out. Kexvar immediately charged forward, trying to use his size and weight to overwhelm Maya. His first punch was aimed at her head, moving like a battering ram. Maya ducked under it and stepped to the side, feeling the wind from his fist as it passed over her. Stand still and fight, Kexvar growled, turning to face her again. Fighting means using your brain, not just your muscles, Maya replied. Staying light on her feet, Kexvar threw another punch, this one aimed at her body. Maya twisted away from it and threw a quick jab at his ribs. Her fist connected with his scales, but it was like hitting a stone wall. The impact hurt her knuckles more than it hurt him. Is that all you have? Kexvar asked, grinning. My youngest sibling hits harder than that. Maya circled around him, looking for openings. She threw a few more punches, testing his defenses and learning his patterns. Each time, her attacks bounced off his natural armor without doing any real damage. The crowd of cadets was getting restless. Some of them were calling for Kexvar to end the fight quickly. Others were making jokes about how long Maya was taking to lose. This is boring, one of the Vorthans said. The human is just running around. She is not even trying to fight. But Maya was not running. She was learning. With each exchange, she was figuring out how Kexvar moved, how he thought, and most importantly, where his weaknesses might be. She noticed that his thick scales were not uniform everywhere. At the joints where he needed to bend and move, the scales were thinner and more flexible. Come on, little human, Kexvar taunted. Show me this famous human fighting spirit I have heard so much about. Maya smiled for the first time since the fight began. Be careful what you ask for. Maya continued to circle around Keksvar, her feet moving quickly on the training mat. She had been dodging his attacks for several minutes now, and she could see that he was starting to get frustrated. His punches were becoming wilder and less controlled. This was exactly what she had been waiting for. "Stop running around like a scared rabbit," Keksvar growled, throwing another heavy punch that missed Maya by inches. "Fight me properly." "I am fighting," Maya said, staying just out of his reach. "You're just not used to opponents who think before they act." The crowd of cadets was getting louder now. Some of them were calling for more action, while others were placing new bets on how much longer the fight would last. Maya could hear Jake Peterson cheering for her from somewhere in the crowd, but most of the voices were not friendly. "The human is making a fool of herself," one of the Chronexi cadets said. "She cannot win by running forever. She is embarrassing her entire species," another added. "Humans should know their place." Maya ignored the comments and focused on her opponent. She had learned several important things during their exchanges. Keksvar was incredibly strong, but his attacks were predictable. He relied on his size and power instead of technique. Most importantly, she had noticed that he dropped his guard slightly after each big punch. Leaving himself open for a split second, Keksvar charged at her again, this time trying to grab her with both hands. Maya ducked under his arms and rolled to the side, coming up behind him. She threw a quick punch at the back of his knee, where the scales were thinner. This time she felt her strike connect with something softer. Keksvar stumbled slightly but quickly turned around. "You little pest, I will crush you for that." "You'll have to catch me first," Maya said, but she was no longer just trying to avoid him. She was starting to fight back, targeting the weak spots she had identified. The next time Keksvar threw a punch, Maya stepped inside his reach instead of backing away. She was close enough to smell his breath, which smelled like metal and fish. His massive fist passed over her head as she drove her elbow into his ribs, right at the spot where his scales met his softer underside. Keksvar grunted in pain and swung his other hand down at her. Maya rolled away just in time, feeling the wind from his strike. She came up on her feet and immediately attacked again, this time targeting his ankle with a low kick. "She is actually hurting him," Kira said in surprise. "How is that possible?" "Humans are sneaky," one of the Vorthans replied. "They attack weakness instead of strength." Maya could see that Keksvar was getting angry now. His yellow eyes were bright with rage, and his movements were becoming more desperate. He was swinging harder but also leaving himself more open. She had to be careful not to get caught by one of his wild attacks, but she could also see that her strategy was working. "You think you are clever, little human," Keksvar snarled, "but you cannot hurt me enough to matter. I am Chronexi. We are built for war." "Everyone has weak spots," Maya said, circling him again. "You just have to know where to look." She had been studying him carefully, and she thought she knew his biggest weakness. The scales on his shoulders were thick and strong, but they had to be flexible enough to let him move his arms. At the joint where his shoulder met his collarbone, there was a small gap in his natural armor. Keksvar came at her with both fists, trying to corner her against the wall. Maya waited until the last possible moment, then dropped low and rolled between his legs. As she came up behind him, she saw her chance. Keksvar was turning around, his right arm extended as he tried to backhand her. The movement exposed the exact spot Maya had been looking for. She could see the thin line where his shoulder scales met and the softer tissue underneath. Maya moved faster than she had ever moved before. She grabbed Keksvar's extended arm with both hands, using his own momentum against him. At the same time, she planted her feet and twisted her entire body. Applying a leverage technique her father had taught her for handling large farm animals, the principle was simple. Every joint had a breaking point, and if you applied force at the right angle with the right leverage, size did not matter. Maya had used this technique to bring down animals much larger than herself back on the farming colony. Keksvar's eyes went wide as he realized what was happening. He tried to pull his arm back, but Maya had already committed to the move. She used his own strength against him. redirecting his force through the weakest point in his shoulder. Structure. The sound that followed was like a branch breaking in a storm. It was sharp, loud, and final. Kexvar's collarbone snapped with a crack that echoed through the entire training bay. The huge Chronaxi warrior dropped to his knees immediately, his face twisted in pain and shock. His right arm hung uselessly at his side, and he made a low groaning sound that Maya had never heard before. The training bay went completely silent. Every cadet, every instructor, every person in the room was staring at the scene in front of them. The massive Chronaxi warrior was on his knees, defeated by a human girl who was less than half his size. Maya stood over him, breathing hard but still ready to fight if necessary. She looked around the room at all the shocked faces. Some of the cadets had their mouths open. Others were stepping back, as if they were afraid of her. "Medical team to Training Bay 7, Commander Turner called out, his voice cutting through the silence. "We have an injured cadet." Kexvar was still on his knees, holding his shoulder and making pained sounds. Maya felt a moment of sympathy for him, but she also felt something else. For the first time since arriving at the academy, she felt like she belonged here. How did she do that? One of the Zephyrian cadets asked. "It is not possible," Vorthan replied. "Chronaxi bones are stronger than human bones." She should not have been able to break him, but Maya had done it. She had taken down one of the Academy's strongest cadets using nothing but technique, timing, and the knowledge that every creature, no matter how strong, had weaknesses. The medical team arrived and began treating Kexvar's injury. They gave him something for the pain and carefully moved him onto a stretcher. As they carried him out of the training bay, he looked back at Maya with an expression she could not read. "Well," Commander Turner said, looking at Maya. "That was unexpected," Maya nodded, still catching her breath. She had proven something today, not just to the other cadets, but to herself. Humans might not be the biggest or strongest species in the galaxy, but they were not helpless either. The other cadets began to disperse, talking quietly among themselves. Maya could hear them discussing what they had just seen, trying to understand how a human had defeated a Chronaxi in hand-to-hand combat. As she walked back to get her water bottle, Jake Peterson came up to her with a big smile on his face. "Now, that," he said, "was the most human thing I have ever seen." Maya smiled back. "What do you mean?" "You took the biggest, strongest guy in the room and found a way to beat him using nothing but your brain and guts. That's what humans do best." Maya looked around the training bay one more time. The other cadets were looking at her differently now. There was respect in their eyes, and maybe a little fear. She had changed something today, and she knew that tomorrow would be different. "Come on," Jake said. "Let's go get some food. I have a feeling you're going to be hungry after that workout." Maya nodded and followed him out of the training bay. Behind them, the other cadets were still talking about what they had witnessed. The human girl had just changed everything at the academy, and everyone knew it. The news of Maya's victory spread through the academy like wildfire. By the time she reached the mess hall for dinner, every cadet seemed to know what had happened in Training Bay 7. Some stared at her with open curiosity, while others whispered among themselves when they thought she was not looking. Maya got her food and sat down at an empty table, but she was not alone for long. Jake Peterson joined her first, followed by two other human cadets she barely knew. Then, to her surprise, Kira the Zephyrian sat down across from her. "I have never seen anything like that before," Kira said, her large blue eyes fixed on Maya. "How did you know where to strike him?" "My father taught me to hunt large animals back home," Maya explained. "Every creature has weak spots. You just have to know where to look and how to exploit them." "But Chronaxi are supposed to be unbeatable in close combat," said one of the human cadets. "That is what everyone says," Maya shrugged. "Everyone can be beaten if you use the right strategy." Kexvar was strong, but he was also overconfident. That made him sloppy. More cadets began to approach their table. A group of Vorthans stood nearby, listening to the conversation but not sitting down. Even some of the Chronaxi cadets were watching from across the room, though they kept their distance. "Is it true that you broke his collarbone in one move?" asked a Vorthan named Zex Prime. Yes, Maya said simply. But I did not plan it that way. I was just looking for any weakness I could find. The cadets around her exchanged glances. Maya realized that word of her victory was changing how they saw her and possibly how they saw all humans. She was not sure if that was a good thing or a bad thing. After dinner, Maya went to her dormitory to study. She was trying to read her tactical manual when Commander Turner appeared at her bunk. "Collins," he said, "I need to speak with you." "Come with me?" Maya followed him to his office, a small room filled with books and training equipment. Commander Turner closed the door and gestured for her to sit down. "What you did today was impressive," he said, sitting behind his desk. "But it has also created some problems." "What kind of problems?" Maya asked. "Kexvar comes from an important family on Kronax Prime. His father is a general in their military. When word gets back to his home planet that he was defeated by a human, there could be political complications." Maya felt her stomach tighten. "Am I in trouble?" "No," Commander Turner said. "You followed the rules and fought fairly. But you need to understand that your actions have consequences beyond just winning a sparring match." He leaned forward in his chair. "For years, humans have been seen as the weak link in the galactic community. We are smaller, slower, and less specialized than most other species. Today you challenged that perception. Is that bad?" Maya asked. "It depends on how you handle what comes next," Commander Turner replied. "Other cadets are going to want to test themselves against you. Some will be looking for revenge. Others will want to learn from you. You have become a symbol, whether you wanted to or not." Maya thought about this. She had just wanted to prove that she belonged at the academy. She had not considered that her victory might represent something bigger. "What should I do?" she asked. "Be ready," Commander Turner said. "Train harder, study more, and remember that you are not just representing yourself anymore. You are representing humanity." The next morning, Maya woke up to find her schedule had changed. Instead of her usual classes, she was assigned to special training sessions with Instructor Vex. The Kronaxi who assisted Commander Turner, Instructor Vex, was waiting for her in a small training room. He was smaller than Kexvar, but still much larger than Maya. His scales were darker, almost black, and his eyes were sharp and intelligent. "So you are the human who defeated Kexvar," he said, his voice deep and rumbling. "I want to see what you can do." Maya spent the next 2 hours working with Instructor Vex. He tested her technique, her speed, and her ability to think under pressure. Unlike Kexvar, he did not underestimate her or mock her species. He treated her like a serious opponent. "You have good instincts," he said when they finished. "But you rely too much on finding weaknesses. What will you do when you face an opponent who does not have obvious weak spots?" "I will have to create them," Maya said. Instructor Vex smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "Good answer. That is what real fighters do." Over the following days, Maya found herself in a strange position. Some cadets avoided her, afraid of what she might do to them. Others challenged her to fights, hoping to prove that her victory over Kexvar was just luck. A few, like Kira, genuinely wanted to learn from her. Maya accepted some challenges and declined others. She won most of her fights, but she also lost a few. Each defeat taught her something new about combat and about herself. The biggest change came from an unexpected source. 3 days after the sparring match, Maya received a message asking her to come to the medical bay. When she arrived, she found Kexvar sitting on a hospital bed, his arm in a sling. "You came," he said, sounding surprised. "How are you feeling?" Maya asked. "My shoulder will heal," he replied. "But my pride may take longer." They looked at each other for a long moment. Maya was not sure what to say. She had defeated him, but she did not feel like gloating. "I want to apologize," Kexvar said suddenly. "What I said before our fight was wrong. I judged your entire species based on ignorance and prejudice." Maya was shocked. She had not expected an apology, especially not from a Kronaxi warrior. "I have been thinking about our fight," Kexvar continued. "You did not win because you were lucky. You won because you understood combat better than I did. You saw weaknesses that I did not even know I had. Everyone has weaknesses, Maya said. Even me. Perhaps, Kexvar said. But you also have strengths that I failed to recognize. Your species may not be physically powerful, but you have something else. You have the ability to adapt and overcome. Maya did not know what to say to that. She had never thought of adaptability as a strength before. I would like to ask you something, Kexvar said. When my shoulder heals, would you be willing to train with me? I want to learn your techniques, Maya smiled. I would like that, but only if you promise to take me seriously. I promise, Kexvar said. I will never underestimate a human again. As Maya left the medical bay, she realized that something important had changed. She was no longer just fighting for herself. She was fighting for the respect and recognition of her entire species. The weight of that responsibility was heavy. But it was also inspiring that she had proven that humans belonged at the academy. Now she had to prove that they belonged in the galaxy. 6 months later, Maya stood in the academy's main auditorium wearing her dress uniform. The graduation ceremony was about to begin, and she could see hundreds of cadets from dozens of species filling the seats. In the front row sat the academy's top instructors and several high-ranking military officers from across the galaxy. Maya looked different now than she had on her first day at the academy. She was stronger, more confident, and carried herself like a real soldier. But the biggest change was not in her appearance. It was in how others looked at her. Nervous? Asked Jake Peterson, who was standing next to her in line. He had also made it through the academy's brutal training program. A little, Maya admitted. I never thought I would make it this far. None of us did, said Kira, who was standing behind them. The blue-skinned Zephyrion had become one of Maya's closest friends over the past months, but here we are. The ceremony began with speeches from various officials. Maya tried to pay attention, but her mind kept wandering to everything that had happened since her fight with Kexvar. That single moment had changed not just her life, but the entire atmosphere at the academy. In the weeks following the sparring match, other cadets had begun approaching Maya with requests for training. They wanted to learn the techniques she had used to defeat the massive Chronaxi warrior. At first, Maya had been reluctant to teach others, but Commander Turner had encouraged her to share her knowledge. Combat is about more than individual strength. He had told her, the best fighters are also teachers. Maya had started holding informal training sessions in the evenings. She taught cadets from different species how to identify weak points, use leverage effectively, and turn an opponent's strength against them. The sessions had become so popular that the academy had made them part of the official curriculum. The most surprising student had been Kexvar himself. Once his shoulder healed, he had joined Maya's training sessions with enthusiasm. The massive Chronaxi warrior had proven to be an excellent student, eager to learn new techniques and willing to admit when he made mistakes. Your species has a saying he had told Maya during one training session. The mind is the strongest muscle. I am beginning to understand what that means. Their friendship had shocked many of the other cadets. A human and a Chronaxi training together was unusual enough, but the fact that Kexvar clearly respected Maya's skills had forced others to reconsider their own prejudices. The changes had not been limited to combat training. Maya had also excelled in her academic courses, particularly in tactical studies and military history. Her instructors had noted her ability to think creatively and find unconventional solutions to complex problems. Cadet Maya Collins, a voice announced, bringing Maya back to the present. She realized it was her turn to receive her graduation certificate. Maya walked across the stage to where Admiral Chun, the academy's commandant, was waiting. The elderly woman had a reputation for being tough but fair, and she rarely showed emotion during official ceremonies. Congratulations, Lieutenant Collins, Admiral Chun said, handing Maya her certificate and new rank insignia. You have distinguished yourself during your time at this academy. Thank you, Admiral, Maya replied, saluting crisply, but Admiral Chun was not finished. I have something else for you, she said, pulling out a second document. You are being assigned to the USS Endeavor, a mixed-species exploration vessel. Your commanding officer specifically requested you for his crew. Maya was surprised. Most new graduates were assigned to support roles or training positions. A posting to an exploration ship was considered a prestigious assignment. The captain of the Endeavor is Commander Thalvex, a Chronexi officer, Admiral Chun continued. He has heard about your work here and believes you would be a valuable addition to his crew. Maya accepted the assignment orders with another salute. As she walked back to her seat, she caught sight of Kexvar in the audience. He was wearing civilian clothes and had a big smile on his face. Next to him sat several other Chronaxi, including some who wore military uniforms with high-ranking insignia. After the ceremony, there was a reception for the graduates and their families. Maya was talking with Jake and Kira when Kexvar approached with an older Chronaxi wearing a general's uniform. Maya, Kexvar said, I would like you to meet my father, General Kexvar. Maya saluted the general, who returned the gesture with obvious respect. So you are the human who defeated my son, he said. I have heard much about you. Your son is an excellent warrior, Maya replied diplomatically, and an even better student. General Kexvar laughed, a sound like rocks tumbling down a mountain. He tells me you have taught him to fight with his brain as well as his muscles. This is a valuable lesson. We have all learned from each other, Maya said. Indeed, the general agreed. When Kexvar first told me he had been defeated by a human, I was angry. But when he explained how you won, I was impressed. You showed him that strength comes in many forms. Commander Turner joined their conversation, looking pleased with the way things were going. Maya has been an exceptional student, he said. She has changed how we think about combat training here at the Academy. Her techniques are now being taught to cadets throughout the galaxy, General Kexvar said. My own military has requested copies of her training methods. Maya was amazed to hear this. She had no idea that her informal training sessions had attracted attention from military leaders across different worlds. There is something else, Commander Turner said. The Academy has decided to create a new course called Adaptive Combat Techniques. We would like you to help design the curriculum during your leave time. You want me to help teach at the Academy? Maya asked. You have proven that humans have unique perspectives on warfare, Admiral Chun said, joining their group. We would be foolish not to take advantage of that knowledge. As the reception continued, Maya found herself surrounded by cadets, instructors, and military officers from various species. They all wanted to talk to her about combat techniques, human psychology, and the future of interspecies cooperation. Jake appeared at her elbow with 2 cups of punch. So how does it feel to be famous? He asked. Maya took a sip of her drink and looked around the room. She saw Chronaxi warriors talking respectfully with human cadets. She saw Zephyrians practicing the leverage techniques she had taught them. She saw Vorthans taking notes on human tactical philosophy. I never wanted to be famous, Maya said. I just wanted to prove that humans belonged here. Well, you did that, Jake said. And a lot more. Maya nodded, watching as Kexvar demonstrated one of her techniques to a group of younger cadets. The massive warrior moved with precision and control, showing them how to use their opponent's strength against them. You know what the best part is? Maya said to Jake. What? Nobody calls us weak anymore. Jake smiled and raised his cup in a toast. To Maya Collins, he said loudly enough for others to hear. The human who changed everything. Around them, cadets from a dozen different species raised their own cups and repeated the toast. Maya felt a warmth spread through her chest that had nothing to do with the punch. She had come to the Academy as a farm girl from a small colony, hoping to prove she was strong enough to be a soldier. She was leaving as a lieutenant in the Galactic Defense Force, with friends across multiple species and a reputation that would follow her to the stars. But most importantly, she had helped change how the galaxy saw humanity. No longer were humans considered the weak link in the galactic community. They were recognized as valuable partners with unique skills and perspectives. As Maya looked around the room at the faces of her fellow graduates, She realized that this was just the beginning. Tomorrow, she would report to the USS Endeavour and begin her career as an officer in the Galactic Fleet. But tonight, she was simply Maya Collins, a human who had refused to accept limitations and had inspired others to do the same. The future was full of possibilities, and she could not wait to explore them all.